Welcome to another episode of the House Huddle Podcast. Here are your hosts, Rob Schwartz and Justin Onayemi, two Bears fans who decided talking into a microphone was better than shouting at their television.
Welcome in, House Huddlers, to episode 71 of the House Huddle Podcast. Huddle up! As always, I'm Rob Shores with Bear Goggles On, and joining me is my good friend and co-host, almost a ho-host.
Don't call me out like that.
Co-host Justin Onayemi.
Yeah, good to be here.
2 games in a row.
Wow, what are we going to do? So this is, we're recording the day after. It's Monday when we're recording. The day after their Week 14 victory at home against the Lions.
Yeah, we can blame my son. He apologized multiple times last night, but I had to take him to the emergency room.
No one's to blame. In fact, sitting on it today actually did give me like a whole different perspective that I want to bring to it.
Okay.
Now, I will warn the viewers, the listeners, who we very much appreciate. We're not going to go that much into the game, some about the game, but really still like the big picture things, which is getting really interesting and really murky.
It is.
Before we go too far, though, episode 71.
71, you had a name.
I have a name.
And I have a name.
You have a name?
Yeah, I confirmed it.
Is it the one you said?
It is.
Why did I forget that?
I don't know.
Okay, wow. This is going to be a tough one then, folks. I have Israel Adonijah.
Which is definitely a guy in our big
Nigerian
when
too.
I first started getting into, that was during the Lovey era.
Yep.
Yeah.
And 71's a weird number for a defender.
Yes.
But he wore it well and just was an impact player. But who do you got?
I got James Big Cat Williams.
I can't believe I forgot he was 71.
Yeah. I actually went to a Bears camp, Merrill Hodge camp, and met him in person.
Cool.
Big guy.
So not huge. Ironically named Big Cat.
That's right. Not ironic.
Okay. Well, that's a tough call. How about they can
they can coexist.
Coexist as honorary members of the House Huddle episode named after you.
Yes.
Club. It's an exclusive club.
It is.
I forget the one that was a really random dude. I was going to throw his name in there.
Something neck. Right? Because we started talking about that guy.
That dude with the peanut butter. Yeah. Sorry. I'm not enunciating, but that guy chugs peanut butter.
Chugs peanut butter.
We're off topic. We had no script. We did not rehearse.
No notes.
I have a few notes, but they're general notes.
Yeah.
And so I really want to share some of what I'm taking from the big picture. But
lead us off.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
all right.
To see where you go.
So I think an important thing to do when you have a podcast is to call yourself out when you're possibly not correct. And a few weeks back, I'd have to roll back the tape to know exactly what episode, but I very much made fun of the fact that the Bears could even consider that they are the 22 Lions.
Okay.
After yesterday, and depending on what they do in these last 4 weeks, they very much are positioning themselves to be the 2023 version of the 2022 Lions. And it took beating the Lions, using the hits principle, looking really dominant in 2 games against them. You only went 1-1 to kind of reveal it. And I got more that I want to say, but go ahead.
Well, just to kind of recap off of that, for those of you who don't recall, the Detroit Lions started the season out 1-7 last year. They rallied towards the end of the season, only lost one more game the rest of the year, finished 8-9. No, 9-8. Finished 9-8.
Eked into the playoffs, or were the last ones out?
They were the last ones out.
Okay.
At this point, Chicago has 4 games left. Winnable games on paper, right? If they do win, they will be 9-8.
So this next game's against Cleveland Browns.
It's a tough game.
They're in playoff contention in the tough AFC.
I would have felt better about it had they not went out and got Joe Flacco.
True. Flacco has looked good in 2 games.
Flacco on the practice squad.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't hear that. But Flacco's looked good in 2 games. Granted, he's a statue of a quarterback. And the way the Bears have been rushing the quarterback lately, I think they could get some pressure on him. But Cleveland is 6-1 at home. That's what I was going to say. Go ahead.
Very interesting thought just popped in my head.
Okay.
Do the Chicago Bears claim him? Just to so that they can't use
They
him, or at least they have
should.
to like put him back on the active
They should
roster?
consider it, but I don't know. Why'd they do that?
I don't know. It's weird.
Anyway, this is not a Browns podcast, as you can tell.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
Don't
wasn't
follow
aware
it
of
enough.
that. I was not aware of that. But the Bears have looked very different.
Yeah.
And I don't know how far back to go. I mean, you could go back to them blowing the game against Denver. They didn't get the win, but they looked a lot better, at least on the offensive side of the ball. But at that time, the defense was not doing what they should. And you're looking at an embarrassing blown loss, a defensive-minded coach, doesn't have a defense that's playing well. And it was like, when can we fire this Eberflus guy? Now, and a big part of what I want to talk about in this episode is what is his status? Because now they look so much better on defense. I have some random numbers and things I want to share with you throughout the episode. But I would say since Montez Sweat has come back, which also happened to coincide with getting a healthier secondary, this defense is now statistically a top 5 defense in the league.
Yeah.
When you have top 5 defense, your offense can just be the kind of offense that just keeps you in games, doesn't turn the ball over, plays smart, that kind of thing, which for some of the game yesterday, that's what they were. And take advantage of opportunities, and you can start racking up wins in a league that I keep saying is built for parity. It's built for a lot of 9 and 8. And the Bears, as you said, if they win out, can go 9 and 8 in a season where you historically blew 2 games.
Yes.
In both the Denver loss and the first loss, only loss this year to Detroit.
Yeah.
So things are starting to look a lot different.
Can I say
all
that?
while not clearing up anything, I would say, with the Justin Fields question. But go ahead.
So, first of all, let me go back here to the Joe Flacco thing.
Okay.
Because I don't want to just like leave that open-ended. So
please.
Joe Flacco did get put back on the practice squad, but apparently it's like a roster management thing. Like he automatically has to be reverted back to the practice squad.
To the active squad?
No.
Oh.
He had to be reverted like
I
the way,
see.
because I think he might have been their third quarterback, like part of that new quarterback active rule.
Okay.
So he's not eligible to sign with any other team's active roster. Yeah, active roster. But he's also basically been named their starting quarterback for this year. I don't think he's going anywhere. Clearly,
No, I know.
Is the whole
And
point, right?
your
It was just kind
idea
of a
was
joke.
just like gamesmanship, ultimate gamesmanship that you occasionally do see teams pull.
Yes.
But Bears probably think, let's just play them straight up and beat them.
So regarding the defense, there's been one big change, but there's been also a lot of other changes. And one thing to consider is, okay, Alan Williams left, Matt Eberflus took over. Okay, we've said he's a good defensive coordinator. Is he an actual good head coach? At the time, it was no.
Right.
They're now 5-4 over their last 9 games.
Yep.
So was that a deciding factor? Another thing that happened, they brought in Phil Snow. I don't know if you guys even know who Phil Snow is, but they brought in Phil Snow to help with the defense because they didn't have an actual defensive coordinator. They're just looking for a guy who was going to run through tape, kind of present that information to them so that Eberflus could still be head coach and not solely defensive coordinator. Has he made that much of an impact? Health. If you guys remember at the beginning of the season, the defensive backs were
That's
not fully
the strongest part of their team last year defensively.
Yeah.
And anticipating this year.
Struggled with health in that.
Terrible health issues.
They finally started to get healthy. The big one. Halloween. You trade for Montez Sweat. And I honestly think that that's the biggest factor that we've seen. As much as I want to give all the credit to Matt Eberflus, right? Like Matt Eberflus does deserve a lot of credit for what has changed. But I just want to throw these things out here. Okay, this is, I'm going to give credit here to Adam Rank. He pulled this information for the Sick podcast. Montez Sweat's impact on the Bears. Points per game. Before Montez Sweat, they were allowing 27.3 points per game. Now it's down to 18.2. Again, there's context. You do have to look at who they've played and stuff like that. Those things do matter. Sacks prior to Montez Sweat being on the team, they had 10. And I'm trying to think of how many games they played. They've only played 5 since he's been on the team, and they already have 11. So what is that? They've played
13 games
13
total.
games total.
And you said
so 8
10 sacks in 8
8 games, now 11-5.
Great.
Takeaways, 9 takeaways in 8 games. Now they've had 11 in 5. Total yards per game, they were allowing 341. Now they're down to 272. Specifically pass yardage, they were at 262 passing yards per game. Now they're down to 180. Again, context, a lot of the quarterbacks that they played are like Dobbs, but they did play Justin Herbert during that time. They've played Goff twice now. So Sweat is definitely making a huge impact. He now leads the team in sacks by half a sack too.
Yeah, and they keep referring to him or saying he's a multiplier.
Yeah.
Because you see Justin Jones, who made some plays last year and earlier this year, but he's played better alongside of Sweat, like what we're seeing out of Dexter. Even Ngakwe, who needs to get 8 sacks to keep his streak going. Yep. He's at 4 now, I think, something like that. But
with 4 games,
it could happen.
Get one game.
One a game going forward. So really, really interesting stuff we're seeing. Now, I want to take you to something. I texted you and Bob this earlier before the game. Well before, days before. So this would have been after week 13. I'm not sure how this stat may have changed due to this week's games. But after week 13, there were only 5 teams in the NFL. And spoiler alert, one of them is the Bears, shockingly. I wouldn't be bringing this up if it wasn't one of them the Bears. But there were only 5 teams in the NFL after 13 weeks who were top 10 in rushing offense and top 10 in rushing defense. Now, I know the NFL has changed, but typically, especially if you've been a Bears fan for as long as you and I have, teams say, you win by running the ball and defending the run. Obviously, it's a passing league. We get that. But that's still something you're going to need to be able to do to ice the clock when you need to run out a victory or bad weather playoffs, that type of thing.
You can't be one-dimensional.
You can't be one-dimensional. So there were only 5 teams in the NFL that were top 10 rush offense, top 10 rush defense. Listen to these teams. And then, of course, you're shocked to hear the Bears are one of them. The Eagles, the Lions, the Dolphins, the 49ers, the Bears. You take the Bears out of there, you're looking at 4 for sure playoff teams. 3 for sure Super Bowl contenders. I took the Lions out, by the way.
Yeah, they've been rough.
They're starting to look like pretenders, not just from this game against the Bears, but their last 3 to 4 weeks, I would say. But you look at 3 Super Bowl contenders, a lock for the playoffs, and then you got your Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
Now, they're not at the level of the other teams. But this also wasn't the year we were saying the Bears should be a Super Bowl contender.
Correct.
Moving forward, you seem like maybe you're getting the recipe for success. The roster has gotten a lot more talented and should continue to when you have all the money they're going to have in free agency, all the draft capital, which is going to be something we're going to talk about in a little bit here, and what to do with it. But it's very exciting to hear a stat like that. The stuff you just shared with Montez Sweat, because my stat was over 13 games. They've been good stopping the run all year long.
Yeah.
Brisker yesterday, 17 tackles.
Yeah. Did you hear the joke though about that?
No. I mean, safeties getting tackles can be a bad thing.
Well, no, it wasn't that. It was that someone pointed out that in Matt Eberflus's career, collegiate career, he had 21 tackles in the game. So the joke was that Brisker's got a little bit of work still to do.
I see. Different competition level. He was at Toledo, I believe.
Toledo, yeah.
Well, they're D1. I don't know if they were back then.
I don't know. This was before my time.
Hey, it's good. I mean, that speaks again to the secondary and how strong it is.
Yep.
I have a player that I believe will not be a part of that next year, and it better not be Jaylon Johnson.
Pay that man.
Pay him. Get him on. Lock him up. 24 years old. Really showing himself as a number 1 corner.
Yep.
Not a lot needs to change on this, especially on that side of the ball, for this roster to take that next step.
No.
So
prior to the game, Ryan Poles had talked about how close they were to becoming an elite defense and becoming a good team, and it sounded like someone who's going to be bringing back Matt Eberflus, and I'm on the fence still. Like, I am so on the fence.
So if I didn't make it clear, that's the thing I was going to say, is I'm going to go on the record right now. Now, granted, there are 4 games.
Yeah.
I do believe what I'm saying could change if they go 1-3 or 0-4 in the next 4.
Sure.
But if they go 2-2, 3-1, or 4-0, I'm on the record right now saying Eberflus has done enough to lock up his position. Now, what's odd about that is that we talked about how there were all these questions, him being one of them. But
is it possible, though? I'm a very emotional Chicago Bears fan. I think it's pretty well known, right? Like
Rob's rants.
Yes, it's very easy for me to jump on a situation without actually giving it cognitive thought and slowing down and thinking things through logically. Okay, I think there's a lot of Bears fans out there who are just
relate.
Like me,
yes,
okay?
Resemble that statement.
Last year was a tank year.
Yep.
Okay, whether you want to call it a tank year or not, it was a rebuilding year. You knew stripping it down, they were not going to be a good team. I thought they'd be better than a 3-win team. I think I had them for 8 wins last year. I actually had them for 8 wins again this year. Is it possible that maybe I and many other people like me jumped the gun with Eberflus from a head coaching standpoint? I'm still not a fan of his right, not very motivational talk that he gives to the team, but there has been comments by Montez Sweat, who came from Washington. Ron Rivera is usually seen as one of the better head coaches in the NFL, right? Saying that got me. Saying that over there it wasn't as strong. The team, the bond, it wasn't there. Where now it's coming here, it seems very different. Is it possible that we got ahead of ourselves with the Matt Eberflus situation in that last year was a bad year for the whole team? And yes, we want to give Justin Fields the benefit of that doubt. Now, are we not giving it to Eberflus? And it takes some time to learn how to be a head coach.
Right.
He's only in a year and 3 quarters of his, whatever, how many year contract that he signed, because you never fully know that.
Right.
If they finish the season 2-2, I think you bring back Eberflus. That said, I'm still out on Getsy.
Right. And I do think, like I'm saying, I think Eberflus has a good chance now of staying. Something still should change.
Yes.
Now, I don't know, though. You go 4-0 here, finish 9-8, you're above 500.
If the offense is rolling.
Right. Then maybe you roll it back with everyone and you put more talent on the roster and you just go and see where things go. But now, let's say they keep Eberflus, you get rid of Getsy, and you're keeping Fields. He has to learn a new system. He should be able to as a 4th-year quarterback.
Correct.
The talent will be immense.
Correct.
And you should see success. But it's just making these questions that much harder, I think.
Ryan Poles has got to he's got to earn his dollars. Let's just say that.
And I think he has up to this point. You and I are big fans of a lot of the moves he's made. I think one thing that we're just simply overstating, I guess, or forgetting, is that if you keep Fields, you still aren't necessarily committing to him long term.
No.
And it's looking more and more like Carolina is going to get the Bears that first overall pick. If you have the first overall pick, but you're committed to Fields, most likely you're trading that. Most likely. I know we got to go into our mock offseason episodes, which I'm very excited about.
Yes.
Let's let things play out a little bit before we get to that point. But the reason I bring that up is his initial trade last year still has 2025 draft implications. They get Carolina's 2nd-round pick in 2025.
Yeah.
Now, you trade again, you're building more and more future draft capital. You're giving Fields the continuity that hopefully will lead to success, as well as talent. He can show you he's that dude, and you start to you do invest in him. And investing in your quarterback who's no longer on a rookie deal sometimes means you got to make some tough cuts. This is where that future draft capital will come in.
Correct.
To supplement the losses you might have at key positions.
And there are some cuts on this team that will generate upwards of $20 million that I don't think are tough cuts.
Oh, yeah. In this season. I'm talking about now one more season beyond that. But here's the thing. He then has to either prove to you he is that dude, and you build you've already built a very solid roster around him with the ability to cover up some holes that might be formed by giving him the big time money, or he doesn't prove that to you. And now you're not getting Caleb Williams, you're not getting Drake May, you're getting whoever comes out the next year.
Someone.
Unless you miss on a generational quarterback.
People
are saying that Williams is.
But no one thought CJ Stroud was going to be this.
Right. And
I put this out on Twitter the other day. If you are a Chicago Bears fan, I am on record of saying CJ Stroud was my QB1 over Bryce Young. I said it from the beginning, way early last year. I still also never said that I would take him over Justin Fields.
Exactly.
Why? Because I never thought that he would be this good, right? I thought he'd be good.
And this fast.
And this fast. If you were out there saying you should have taken him because you thought he was going to be this good, I want record. I want receipts. Because I guarantee you there aren't very many people out there that said that.
So if you trade this number 1 pick again this year, I can't imagine a scenario where that doesn't come with a number 1 the following year.
No. It has
so
to.
You're going to have 2 first-round picks the year after that.
Yes.
And let's say Fields just still isn't showing.
Can we talk?
You pocket those or package those and can get any quarterback you want out of the following draft. Or you go free agent route, or you trade, or you'll have so many options.
I'm going to put this into perspective really, really quick. I don't want to dive too deep into this, but today I went through and looked at every team that is currently ahead of the Chicago Bears all the way through to the Bengals, which includes 4 teams that are 7-6. Okay, and I looked at their schedules. Over the next 4 weeks. Now I am projecting who I think is going to win tonight in the Monday night games. Okay, I have Miami winning, and I have the Packers winning. Okay,
we need the Packers.
Yes, we do need the Packers for UFFL.
This is a Bears podcast.
Very important,
but only for UFFL purposes.
Very important.
We need the Packers.
I don't see how the Panthers don't finish with the first overall pick. They play the Falcons, the Packers, the Jaguars, and the Buccaneers over the last 4 weeks. They would need to win at least 2 games to be at the same record as where the Patriots would be if the Patriots lose.
And they still would pick before them, I believe.
Correct.
I'm fairly confident they would. So the Panthers would need to win 3 games.
They would still be ahead of New England. Yes, they have the
They can't win 3 out of those 4. And New England would have to lose every game.
Correct. They would have to lose everyone, right? Cardinals. Same situation as the Patriots, and just double checking. Yes, they also would be ahead of the Cardinals. Now, here's what's important, though. If Chicago gets that first overall pick, and the Cardinals end up jumping the Patriots and end up with the second overall pick, there is a good chance that you will not get Marvin Harrison Jr.
If you trade back, you're saying.
If you trade back, you would have to take him at 1 overall. However, if they are sitting at 1 and the New England Patriots are at 2, there is precedent for that team to move up to 1, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't want anyone else to leapfrog them, especially if they have Caleb Williams or Drake May rated that much higher, and they want 1 and not whoever's left.
Yep.
That is the only way you're going to move down from 1. Get a haul, which I still think would get a 2025 first-round pick.
Agreed.
Get Marvin Harrison Jr. still, and then move on, right? So that's where they're at. Looking at records, I did go through, and again, I went through every team. I did a projection. I did what happens if Chicago wins out, what happens if they lose out. The best, highest draft pick that the Chicago Bears could end up with if they end up losing every game.
Oh, okay.
Right? In my opinion, is 5. Okay, they're at 7 right now. They would be at 5. Washington would still have a tiebreaker over them because Chicago beat them.
I just want to interrupt you real quick.
Yeah.
With the flow of how things are going now, losing out doesn't look that good anymore.
No.
Okay.
That's not where I project them.
Okay.
If they win out and they go 9-8. Depending on what happens with help and how they progress, do they make the playoffs or not? Because right now, Green Bay and Minnesota are in the playoffs. just the way that the wild card is with that extra game.
Well, because the
extra
NFC
team.
South is just so trash that only their division winner can get in.
Correct. It's the Bucks, who has a worse record technically than Green Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Could change.
Tonight.
They'll be tied basically tonight if
Green Bay
loses.
Yep.
But Green Bay and Minnesota are both in. Minnesota has not a tough schedule, but they do have a tough schedule. They play Detroit twice still in these last 4 games, and they have Dobbs. Like Dobbs, I give him credit for what he's been able to do, but like he's not Kirk Cousins.
Agreed.
I don't think that
Jefferson got hurt in his first game back.
Yeah, I don't think that they have a chance of making the playoffs. They're not going to win out. At best, they probably win 2 out of the last 4. Okay, that puts them at 8-9. No, that would put them at also 9-8. I have them winning 1 game at 8-9. Long story short, Chicago still is in the hunt, guys. This is where we wanted them to be. They could make the playoffs. I have them finishing 3rd. Both Green Bay, if they win
3rd
out,
in the division.
If they win out, I'm not projecting that they're going to win out. If they win out, they would be 3rd in the division. Green Bay would win the tiebreaker because they have a better opponent record. They would finish 4-4 against the teams that Chicago and Green Bay both played this season. Chicago would be 3-5 in those games. But they still could creep in. If they do creep in, then things could change. If they don't, they're going to be around 13. Middle of the pack. I project them only getting 7 wins and finishing around 9. So I think they're going to have the first overall pick from the Carolina Panthers and creeping in right at that
10 to 13 range.
Right at that in the top 10 pick.
Mm-hmm.
If Ryan Poles was able to trade down, get Marvin Harrison Jr., get future capital, and still get a top 10 pick,
it's like we don't remember that for 3 straight years we didn't even have a first-round pick.
Yes. Yes.
So the fact that your pick will be in the first half of the draft or first half of the first round, and you have the number 1 pick.
In fact, 1 year they didn't have a first or a second round pick. Their first pick was a 3rd rounder.
So I don't know. I mean, we're either having to take a break here or wrap things up pretty soon. But
we're not going to take a break. I'm just going to put a break somewhere in this episode.
Okay, then let's keep going.
Yeah.
Because I just think you nailed it on the head. Ryan Poles is just going to have a really challenging offseason to navigate. But in another sense, I kind of feel like you can't miss.
Yeah.
You can't miss. And I don't mean
you can miss.
I mean it both ways. You can't afford to miss what's coming up, but you also can't miss. Right. Because if you end up with the number 1 pick and you do decide Caleb Williams is a special talent and we're just going to go support. Yeah. You have to. You have to just figure he's coming into what looks like a good roster in a mediocre conference.
We could go back to the Russell Wilson when he was drafted in the 3rd round. That team, and did they go to the playoffs right away? I don't remember if they went to the Super Bowl until 2014.
Well, I mean, I feel like that's quite different though, in the sense that they weren't expecting that necessarily out of a pick like that. Whereas this, you're basically handing him the keys, saying, "Yeah,
they had the defense." They had key components on offense, and they brought in a young quarterback, right?
Well, they had signed Matt Flynn.
They did. But they brought in a young quarterback, and then boom.
Right. So this team would be, in my mind, ready to win with a quarterback you're saying is generational talent. And hopefully you're right about that. And not only do you compete next year, but you're on the map for the next decade.
Yeah.
That's if you go use your number 1 on Caleb Williams route. But if you have the number 1 and decide you're not going to go that route, we just showed what it could lead to. It could lead to a talent like Marvin Harrison Jr., who's supposed to be generational.
And if not,
and belief in Fields,
there are 2 to 3 other good wide receivers that are worth a top 15 pick that could also, they might not be Marvin Harrison Jr., but they're very close to being
better than Mooney.
Exactly. And if you feel that Braxton Jones is good enough at your left tackle and you don't got to go get Joe Alt or Olu Fashanu, you get one of these guys, boom.
I've liked what I've seen out of Braxton Jones. I want them to have a better swing tackle than Larry Borum, but that's not who you draft at 5 or 10 or 8.
No.
You find that in free agency. You draft that in the 3rd round or something like that.
That said, I also don't think Braxton Jones is a difference maker. Like, he's good.
Look how good this line seems right now.
I agree. But I also just feel like if you can upgrade at left tackle, you upgrade at left tackle.
Of course. But
it's best player available at that position or at that pick. That's how I'm going to look at it. That's how Ryan Poles is going to look at it. Whoever is there, if you think that player is better, you go get him.
Well, as I teased before, we will certainly be doing
I can't
a
wait
minimum of one, but hopefully multiple mock off-season, mock drafts, mock everything.
We have a fun, somewhat mock part of an off-season episode coming up that this week plus next week could dictate how that episode's going to go, but we're still going to do it.
Yeah. By this point in last season, we were already full-blown, like, the draft was tomorrow, let's plan for it.
I think we did our mock off season
by now. I think so. By now, for sure. But this is a different season. This is a different team. I do think the weird thing is how much I've changed my mind on Eberflus. And I always acknowledge that so much of that decision is about things we don't know and that we don't see. Mm-hmm. But I will say, and I almost made this joke earlier when you were talking, that 3-14 team last year, from a confidence standpoint, from a way they kind of spoke and everything, seemed like they still thought they were, like moving in the right direction, basically.
Yeah.
So there is something to be said for the fact that
1-7
they knew it was a season where the wins wasn't what it was all about. Right. It was about establishing an identity, which we didn't think they had done, but you're starting to see it now. And it was about, letting some young players get experience. This is still a very young roster.
Winning cures everything.
It does. It sure does.
So when you're 5-4 over 9 games, it's just a different feeling than when you're 1-7, 1-4. It's just
at the same time, you can't start 0-4 and then just say, we're going to be the 2022 Lions and watch us come roaring back.
Correct.
Every game matters, and we see that now, because had they not dropped that Denver game, even just that one.
Yep.
But you also say the first Detroit game, it's a whole different feel, a whole different look.
Yep.
If you're, what would that be? 7-6?
7-6.
Not only are you in the hunt, you're
in
penciled in as one of the teams in the playoffs.
You're in the playoffs.
So we can't play the woulda, coulda, shoulda game.
Unfortunately.
The only thing that matters is if you win or lose these games. But they've made watching the games on Sunday now fun, interesting, something that you have to look forward to. So, as I said, Cleveland is going to be a tough matchup, I think, because they are 6-1 at home.
Is he going to see ghosts?
It's where he got his first start of his NFL career and took, 8 sacks? 9, I believe?
9 sacks.
So Myles Garrett was sitting on his head for a good portion of that game and could do the same thing now.
Speaking of sitting on his head, can we just throw out there, can this guy get a flag? How many times do we see him get hit and no flags are thrown? I'm sick of it.
I don't know what that's about. I don't get it.
His teammates are calling for it. I know Matt Eberflus said that he's calling the league constantly. If you're going to throw a flag for a guy who stands 6 inches over the line of scrimmage, throw a damn flag when Justin Fields gets his bell rung.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that was a reference to the Chiefs.
That was.
But
which also
Detroit
us in UFFL.
The 2022 Lions, the 2023 Lions got to play opening game against the Super Bowl champs.
Yep.
And at first it was really? And they go and pull off that victory. Now, granted, it was somewhat gift-wrapped,
Green Bay,
including Tony, including many drops by wide receivers. But could we be looking at that for the Bears? Can you imagine? They're the opening game next year against the Super Bowl champs because so many people think it's their time.
Yeah.
Maybe we're on that trajectory. I wouldn't have said that 3-4 weeks ago. But things are now pointing up. This is a really exciting time to see where this goes. Unless they go 1-4, then I recant pretty much everything I've said. You can't.
But we're putting that out there, right? We're putting that caveat on.
True.
We're not ready to just be yes, this team they're doing it. No, they're showing us progress. They're showing us that they can be that team. We just need to continue to see it. But it also just means, and we keep talking big picture, and I said it earlier, Ryan Poles has a tough job ahead of him because I can see the processes that he's going through. We saw it with the Chase Claypool situation. It failed. He went through the same processes with Montez Sweat. It's working. Now he's got to go through the processes just like he did last year. He saw it. He had to do it with Justin Fields last year with that incoming class. Now he's got to do it again. Justin Fields hasn't proven enough to be the unquestionable yes. He is for me. I think that's the best route. But I can also see the process of, well, Caleb Williams, Drake May, they're not CJ Stroud, and Bryce Young is a prospect. So we're going to move forward with the quarterback. Again, I can see that process. I trust enough in Ryan Poles at this point. That's where I'm at. I'm going to trust him to make the correct decisions and move forward. If he doesn't, or if he does, if things don't work out, and we're here in 2-3 years again, well, we're just going to have more fun. That's right. I mean, it's just what we're used to.
All right. Well, looking forward to this next game. I really want to see what they can do on the road, hostile environment against a playoff caliber team. You pull that off.
Yeah.
Now you got Arizona, I believe, here in Chicago.
Yes. Christmas
Eve. So it's a warm weather team coming to the cold. They're basically playing for a draft pick at this point. I mean, the players don't think that way, but that's how bad their season is going. Yep. You should win that game.
Yes.
So we're talking, if you win Cleveland, now you're 6-8. Now you're going into a game you should win at home. You could go to 7-8.
And you got Atlanta at home on New Year's Eve.
And then the Packers.
They
bookend the season. Start with them and end with them.
Which is funny because it was Lions-Packers last year.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, really the 2022 Lions could take shape if they win these next 3 games.
All right. Well, I never so much wanted to be the Lions, but I want the Bears to be, this 2023 Bears to be the 2022 Lions. How crazy is that?
Yeah.
So, all right, Rob.
That's it. That's all I got.
Nice job, man.
Bear down.
Forgot I was the producer.
Next one over.
I forgot I was the producer. When you're at home, you got to produce. So my bad. Let's do that again.
Bear down.
Bear down.